So since we're going to look at something involving a clock that has 12 hours on the face of it, I need you to cut fewer than 12 cards. Okay, so maybe something like that. That's probably fewer than 12. Okay, and if you were here, I'd have you do it. Okay, and so we're going to kind of set these down. Maybe we'll put them in the middle here like that. That will kind of remind us that they're special cards. They're sideways. They're the cards that you cut. Okay, and since we're going to be building a clock, we need 12 cards to do that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Very good. We have 12 cards here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and build the clock best I can on this tiny little pad. 1, 2, 3. Is that going off? 4, 5, 6. Oh, you can't see it. 6. There you go. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Oh boy, we barely, it's not centered, sorry about that, but we got it. We got it in camera view here. Okay, so we have a 12-hour clock, of course. And now, of course, we had you cut a certain number of cards. Okay, so how many cards did you actually cut? I'll just set these down. And so what did you do here? You did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Oh, wow. You barely made it, guys. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Oh, wow. Wow, 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 wow. Okay, we almost cut too many cards for an ordinary 12-hour clock here. But we made it. We did 11. That's okay. So what I need you to do is go to the 11 o'clock position on the table here, on the clock display that we've made. Of course, this is noon, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is 11 o'clock there, right? 11, 10, 9, and so forth. So this is the 11 o'clock. So what is in the 11 o'clock spot? The King of Hearts. Okay. Is that important? Well, it's kind of surprising, actually, because out of all 52 cards that really could have been there, okay, I just happen to have written a prediction. Let me just move these out of the way here. We don't need those anymore. Just slide them off. And this piece of paper has been in camera view the whole time. So let me just move the little king over here. You can still see him. And I'm just going to flip this over. And what prediction did I actually write? You will stop at the King of Hearts. And you did indeed. Whew. How in the world was I able to guess that? I had a 1 in 52 chance. Not very likely. Okay, less than a 2% chance. Could happen. Not very likely. Okay, so that is called the clock, magic clock little routine. And it can be done in many, many different ways. So let me just flip this back down. You can write a prediction if you would like. Okay, so let's show what's going on in this crazy fun effect here. So if you have watched my other video that talks about B brackets, letter B brackets, and it's a interesting way to kind of represent piles or packets of cards, and it helps us keep track of kind of what's going on with an effect, a mathematical effect like the one we've just shown you, okay? So the way that we read this is the brackets it denotes a pile of cards. So when we start with the deck, we can view that as a pile of cards. And now what we'll need to start all of this is we need 12 cards, and following those 12 cards, we need our card of interest, which in the case of what I just showed you happened to be the King of Hearts. Now we don't have to use the King of Hearts again, but we could if we wanted to. So what I need, so this is a little bit of setup that you would need to do at the start. Now there are ways of doing this effect where you don't have to do any setup. Maybe we can talk about that. But in the one I just showed you, I had it set up a little bit. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So the 12 there is being represented by that. Now we have the King of Hearts. This will be our special card. Okay. And then we have all of these other cards. Okay. So it's like 12, special card, and then ellipses, ... the rest of the deck. Okay, so we want the 12 cards on top of the special card, King of Hearts, on top of the rest of the deck. Okay, so this is actually how I began it. I began with the King of Hearts in that 13th position. Okay, so what did we have you do first? I said, well, we're going to do something with clocks. And a clock has 12 hours on it. So I need you to cut 12 or fewer cards, okay? Now we got a little close last time. It was 11, so we almost cut too many. So I'm going to cut some here, okay? And so that could, represent the cards that you would cut if you were here, with me as a spectator, okay? So what we're looking at is, let me set them. I'm going to set them kind of like we've done there. Actually, that's probably not a bad idea. So here's the packet of X number of cards. I don't even know how many are here. Okay, some unknown number. We could count and find out, but we'll discover that as we go. Actually, so we have a certain number here. So we have bracket X. So that means a pile of X number of cards. And then this represents the rest of the cards right here, okay? Well, does the notation make sense for this second bigger pile? Well, what did we have originally? We had 12 cards on top, followed by our King of Hearts. Well, we don't have 12 cards above the King of Hearts anymore, right? Because we had you cut a certain number of cards, X number of them. So now what we have is 12 minus X cards above the King of Hearts, okay? Now, the next line is just a very clever, essentially a rewriting of the information. So the first pile stays the same. This is our pile with X cards, so we can ignore that for the moment. Now look at what's happening here. I don't know if you can kind of see what's going on. So it comes from here. In fact, you can see the first two terms, with the comma in between them, are the same. So we have 12 minus X, 12 minus X, comma 1, and then asterisk indicates our card of interest. We have that as well, but suddenly we have this extra X minus 1, and then a comma with ellipses. We have ellipses here as well, which is fine. Now the ellipses always just represents the rest of the cards in the packet, or the rest of the cards in the deck, okay? So why would we make clear that there are X minus 1 cards below our special card? And if you look at it, it's clearly true that this number of cards is X. If you imagine one smaller than that, that quantity of cards is certainly below the King of Hearts, plus a bunch of other things, right? So there's at least that many cards below our King of Hearts. Okay, so this is a meaningful thing to write, but why would we write it? It just looks like it's complicating life for us. Well, the reason we write it is if you look at the total number of cards in these three little chunks that we're kind of focused on. So here we have 12 minus x. Here we have plus 1, another card, and now we have plus x minus 1. So with a little bit of algebra, what does that simplify to? 12 minus x plus 1 plus x minus 1. Well, the x's cancel. We're subtracting an x here, but adding an x over here, so they drop out. We have a 1, a positive, think of a plus 1 here and a minus 1 here. They drop out. All of these, if somebody gave you an algebraic expression to work with, taking 12 minus x plus 1 plus x minus 1 is indeed equal to 12. Okay, so you can just check some very simple algebra there. Well, why is that helpful? It's because for the next action here, we're going to deal out 12 cards. And the only cards that we'll be dealing out are the ones that we've kind of listed here, because these add up to 12 in quantity. There's 12 cards being represented there. Okay, so look at what happens here. So if we deal out 12 cards, that means we'll get all the way to this point and then we'll stop, because that will be 12 cards. Well, when you deal out cards, let's go ahead and just do it here. So I'm going to deal out 12 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, so 12 cards. When you deal out 12 cards, what does it do? What does it do to the order of the cards? That's kind of an important thing to think about. So if we're up here and we deal out 12 cards, which will just be these, what will that do to the different parts that made up this top 12 cards of the deck? Well, what was on top is now on bottom. Next to it, of course, will be our card of interest. And what was on the bottom, or further down the deck, this is where we stop dealing, those are now on top. So essentially, they just switch places. It's like the mirror image. Everything just kind of flips. What was at the top is now at the bottom, and what was further down in the deck is now on top. Okay, so that's why they switch places after we deal 12 cards. Okay, and once we've dealt 12 cards, we don't care about the rest of the deck anymore. So we can just focus on our packet of X cards, right? And then our packet of 12 cards. Remember, the quantity here of cards is actually 12. But look at what happens. Look at how many cards are above our card of interest. It's x minus 1. Well, x minus 1 cards above this means that if we were to count down x number of cards, we would arrive at that King of Hearts, right? So there are x minus 1 cards above the card of interest. In other words, the position of the card of interest, the King of Hearts, is the same as the number of cards in that packet that we cut. This little cut packet at the very beginning. So the quantity of cards in here is, if we actually count these and then count down that number of cards, we will arrive at the King of Hearts. Okay? Well, I mean, we can just kind of show that that's going to happen here, and then you have to think through, why is it fun to use a clock? But so how many cards did we actually cut? So our X all along here for this, new demonstration has actually secretly been 4, because we didn't know how many we cut. Now we do. It was 4. So our X throughout here is actually 4. Okay, and so the claim is that the 4th card right here, the position of our King of Hearts will be the same as the number of cards in here. So if we count down 1, 2, 3, 4, we will arrive at our card of interest, which we decided to go with the King of Hearts a second time. Okay? So that is kind of showing that yes, indeed, mathematically speaking, this will always work for us. Okay, so why does it work to deal it out as a clock? 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, all the way to noon. So why does that work? Well, just watch what happens. Okay, so I'll just slide, no, it's going to be a little tight here. I'll move this over. Okay, so once again, this is our cut packet by the spectator. These are the 12 cards that we dealt. Okay, so the thing to remember is we're going to deal out to the 1 o'clock first. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm doing it again, 5, going off the camera. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Okay, a little bit messy. Sorry about that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, so think back to the original performance. I had you now count how many cards that you freely cut, and we know now it's 4, and then I had you go to the time on the clock that corresponds to that quantity. So we have 4 cards that have been cut, so we would go to the 4 o'clock hour, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then reveal this, and then if we've written a prediction, or we can state it right before we flip it over, that is the King of Hearts, as a surprising ending. Like, how could you possibly know the identity of that card? So it really is just this dealing it out as a clock is just a fun way to arrange the 12 cards and make it a little bit more engaging as to, okay, wow, that really is very surprising that somehow, given a supposedly random deck of cards, and the spectator freely chose some number of cards, 12 or less, and that number of cards led us to a certain special card that was predicted ahead of time. And you think, oh man, if I had cut more cards or fewer cards, this wouldn't work. Well, it would, because the fact is, if you had cut more cards, what it would do is this little guy, like if you cut 6 cards instead, what would happen to the position of all of these cards? They would just rotate another 2 spots. So if you had 6 here, this special card would now be in the 6-hour position. Or if you cut, like we cut 11 in that original one, so it'd be way over here. It'd be in the 11th hour position. So it ends up, it doesn't matter how many you cut, that will just determine where you are on this clock. Well, that's pretty hard to believe that that actually works. But it works because of this, because of the mathematics behind it as to what's going on. Okay? And it all comes from the fact that in the end, the special card, here the King of Hearts, its position will be the same as the number of cards cut, freely cut by the spectator at the beginning. So it really is quite a remarkable little routine, and with these what are called B brackets notation, we can clearly see why it works, and we can know for certainty that it will work. Okay, so the notation is clarifying for us that this will have to work out in the very way that it has twice now, right? Okay, so that's called the magic clock routine, and you can find many versions of this online. The thing you won't find online is this. You won't find an explanation as to what in the world is going on mathematically. So as you see all these wonderful things on YouTube, unfortunately, many of them you just have to take them as articles of faith that they work, and that's okay for some people. They're happy to do that. But the wonderful thing is, if you understand why it works, then you can modify it to different situations, because the reality is there is nothing special about the number 12 except for the fact that there happens to be 12 hours on the clock. So that enabled us to use that as a way to frame the whole routine, but there's nothing special about the number 12 itself. So the 12 could be replaced by 27 or any other number that you like. And then that if this were 27, you'd be free to cut up to 27 cards. And you could really just go through here and make an adjustment to this proof here, and you'd be able to see that yes, it's going to finish in exactly the same way that it did for us. The number of cards cut will tell you the position of the special card, the card of interest. Okay, so anyway, that's probably enough on the magic clock routine. So if you haven't seen these B brackets before, I encourage you to go to my video that talks about the 21 card force, because within that video I quickly kind of go through and present these B brackets, then this special notation that enables us to essentially see under the hood as to what's going on with many important mathematical card effects. So thank you for watching, and I encourage you to take a look at the one where I explain this and other ones that actually use the B bracket notation to explain what is actually going on.